stop scrolling. Because what you're about to hear might hurt you more than your child. Every parent thinks they're doing their best. But sometimes the worst damage happens in the moments we don't even notice. Your child won't tell you when you break their confidence, when your tone cuts deeper than words, when your silence feels louder than your support. They don't complain, they just change. And that change stays forever. If you're a parent, or planning to be one, this video is going to make you uncomfortable. But sometimes discomfort is the only doorway to becoming better. Children don't remember every word we speak, but they carry the echo of the tone we use. A simple instruction or correction may seem harmless to us, but the way it is delivered can leave a lasting mark. A harsh tone can make a child shrink inside themselves, fearing that they will never be good enough, that every mistake will be met with disappointment or anger. Even when we think we are being firm for their own good, our voice communicates much more than the words themselves. It tells them whether their feelings matter, whether they are seen, and whether they are loved unconditionally. A child growing up in this environment may begin to associate authority and guidance with fear instead of trust. They may learn to hide their mistakes rather than share them, to suppress their emotions rather than express them, and to doubt their own worth every time they hear the sharp edge in a parent's voice. A warm, calm, and patient tone can make a child feel safe, even when being corrected. It teaches them that mistakes are part of learning, that they are valued even when they fail, and that their emotions are valid. The problem is, when parents unconsciously slip into tones of irritation or frustration, children absorb it deeply. They internalize it as a reflection of themselves, rather than the stress or tiredness of the parent. A simple, "Stop doing that," said angrily can echo in a child's mind for hours, turning into, "I'm not good enough," or "I always mess up." Over time, these small moments compound, creating a child who approaches the world with caution, who fears criticism more than they value guidance, and who struggles to trust their own instincts. Even subtle tones matter. A sigh of impatience, a cold response, or a voice that lacks warmth communicates the same message as anger. I am not fully here for you. Children are extremely sensitive to emotional cues, far more than we often realize. While parents might focus on what they are saying, children focus on how it makes them feel. The feeling of being scolded, dismissed, or unheard can become stronger than the lesson itself. And once those feelings settle into the subconscious, they shape the child's perception of relationships, authority, and self-worth for years to come. The danger is that parents often don't notice the pattern. They think they are teaching discipline, responsibility, or respect. But the child is learning something entirely different. They are learning that love is conditional, that mistakes are shameful, and that their own emotions are not safe to express. A harsh tone becomes a teacher of fear, a sculptor of self-doubt, and a silent breaker of confidence. And while words can be forgotten, feelings linger. They follow children into adulthood, influencing how they speak, how they love, and how they forgive themselves. Being mindful of our tone isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. It's about choosing patience over frustration, calm over anger, and connection over correction. Every time we pause, breathe, and speak with care, we give our children the experience of safety, of understanding, and of being genuinely heard. That voice, gentle, firm, and loving, becomes a shield against the insecurities and fears that so easily take root. It is a small but powerful tool, capable of shaping a child's world in ways that last a lifetime. Being physically present doesn't always mean being emotionally available. Many parents sit beside their children, watch them play, or even share meals with them. But their minds are elsewhere. Scrolling on a phone, checking work emails, or replaying the stresses of the day. To a child, the body may be there, but the heart is missing. They notice the disconnect, even if they can't articulate it. Children are incredibly perceptive. They feel emotions more than they hear words. When they sense their parents' absence, a subtle but powerful message is conveyed. You are not my priority. And that message, repeated over months and years, quietly shapes the way they see themselves and the world. Emotional absence doesn't require yelling, criticism, or punishment. It can exist in the silence of disinterest, the distracted glance, or the half-hearted responses. A parent may think they are doing enough by providing food, shelter, and guidance, but children need more than just survival. They need connection. They need to feel valued and understood. When they repeatedly experience emotional neglect, they internalize the belief that their feelings, thoughts, and even achievements are insignificant. Over time, this perception can become a core part of their identity, influencing the relationships they form, the way they express themselves, and the choices they make in life. Children raised with emotional neglect often grow into adults who constantly seek validation from others. They develop an almost insatiable need for approval, always questioning whether they are enough. This is not because they are inherently insecure, but because they never fully experienced the quiet reassurance of being seen and heard. Simple acts of genuine attention, like listening without judgment or responding with empathy, communicate to a child that they matter. Without these, they learn that love and attention are conditional, only given when they behave in certain ways or achieve certain things. They adapt by hiding their true selves, suppressing emotions, and striving to be what they think others expect of them, often at the cost of their own happiness. The irony is that many parents believe they are being loving by giving material comforts, strict routines, or structured guidance. Yet, if the emotional connection is missing, these efforts often fail to provide the sense of security a child truly needs. What children remember most is not the birthday parties, the toys, or the rules, but whether their parent was truly there, whether their triumphs and struggles were acknowledged with presence and empathy. Emotional neglect, even when unintentional, teaches children that their voice is unheard, their pain is invisible, and their joy is unremarkable. Being present emotionally means noticing, listening, and engaging with the child's inner world. It means asking questions, sharing laughter, validating fears, and showing interest in thoughts and feelings, not just behaviors. It is in these moments of genuine attention that children learn self-worth, resilience, and trust. They understand that their existence matters, not because of what they do, but because of who they are. The absence of this emotional presence, even in small doses every day, leaves an invisible mark that can take years to heal, shaping a child's understanding of love, security, and connection in ways that will echo throughout their life. Ultimately, children crave emotional presence more than perfection. They need their parents to show up not just with their bodies, but with their hearts. Every moment of distraction, every glance at a phone instead of their face, every sigh of impatience, teaches them a lesson about where they stand in your priorities. Being truly present is simple in concept, but transformative in impact. It tells a child, you are seen, you are valued, you are important. That knowledge becomes the foundation upon which confidence, trust, and emotional stability are built, and it can change the trajectory of a child's entire life. Fear can feel like a quick fix for controlling children. A raised voice, a stern warning, or a strict consequence may produce immediate obedience. The child stops running, stops arguing, and does what they are told. From a parent's perspective, it seems effective. Behavior is corrected, rules are followed, and life feels manageable. But what children learn in this process is far more damaging than the lesson you intended to teach. When obedience is driven by fear, the mind stops exploring, questioning, or thinking independently. The child learns to react rather than reflect, to comply rather than understand. Over time, this pattern doesn't just shape behavior, it shapes identity. They begin to believe that safety only comes from submission, that mistakes are unacceptable, and that their worth is conditional on not upsetting authority. A child raised under fear becomes an expert at hiding emotions, censoring their own desires, and anticipating judgment at every turn. They may perform perfectly in public, following every rule and expectation, but inside, they are shrinking. Confidence erodes silently as curiosity is replaced by caution, spontaneity by restraint, and courage by anxiety. The very spark that drives creativity, exploration, and self-expression dims under the weight of constant vigilance. They are always measuring, always second, guessing, and always wondering if their next word, action, or thought will trigger anger or disappointment. The cruel irony is that fear creates temporary control but long-term disconnection. A child may obey in the moment, but the trust that forms the foundation of a healthy parent-child relationship erodes with each interaction. They stop looking to their parents for guidance, because guidance has been mixed with intimidation. They stop believing that home is a place of safety and understanding, replacing it with caution and restraint. And when they eventually grow and step outside that environment, the patterns learned in childhood often follow them. They struggle to trust authority, hesitate to express themselves freely, and may even replicate the same controlling behaviors in their own relationships, unaware that fear shaped them more than love ever did. Parents often rationalize fear-based discipline by saying it is necessary for safety, respect, or preparation for the real world. While setting boundaries is essential, the method matters far more than the rule itself. Using fear as a tool communicates that the child's feelings are secondary, their questions unwelcome, and their autonomy dangerous. It teaches them that compliance is more valuable than honesty, and that love is conditional, granted only when they behave correctly. Over time, this becomes a deeply internalized belief. If I make a mistake, I will lose love. If I speak up, I will be punished. No amount of explanation or intention can erase the emotional imprint left by fear. The difference between discipline and fear is the presence of respect, understanding, and empathy. Discipline guides, instructs, and supports growth. Fear dominates, restricts, and punishes the spirit. Children need structure, yes, but they also need to feel safe enough to question, explore, and even fail. They need to trust that love is unwavering, that mistakes are part of learning, and that their inner world is valued. Every time a parent chooses patience over intimidation, explanation over anger, and encouragement over punishment, they plant seeds of confidence, courage, and resilience. Fear may achieve immediate control, but trust, respect, and emotional security shape a life. Choosing the latter doesn't just mold behavior. It molds character, self-worth, and the capacity to thrive in a complex world. Comparison is one of the quietest, most destructive forces a parent can unintentionally wield. It often begins casually. A remark about a sibling, a cousin, or a friend. Why can't you be more like your brother? Or, look at how easily your classmate does this. To a parent, these words might seem harmless, even motivational, meant to push a child to do better. But to the child, each comparison is a subtle judgment, a measure of inadequacy, and a lesson that they are never enough as they are. Over time, repeated comparisons embed themselves in the child's self-perception. They start to believe that love, approval, and acceptance are earned only by outperforming someone else, by being someone else. Their identity becomes tied to external benchmarks, instead of the recognition of their own worth. The damage of comparison is slow and insidious. It doesn't leave visible scars or cause immediate conflict, but it corrodes self-esteem from the inside out. Children begin to view their achievements as insufficient, no matter how significant they are. A grade, a compliment, or a personal victory feels hollow, because the mental echo of comparison whispers that it's never enough. They measure themselves constantly against others, never realizing that the yardstick they use is someone else's life. Over time, the fear of falling short becomes a dominant force, shaping every choice, every relationship, and every self-judgment. Even when they succeed, the sense of accomplishment is fleeting, replaced by anxiety about the next comparison or the next standard they must meet. Parents often intend comparison to motivate, believing it will inspire a child to work harder or achieve more. Yet, motivation driven by comparison is fragile. It is rooted in fear of judgment or desire for approval rather than in curiosity, passion, or self-confidence. Children may perform outwardly, but inside, they carry the persistent anxiety of inadequacy. They learn that love is conditional, that acceptance must be earned, and that their authentic self is never quite enough. The child who constantly hears they fall short develops a critical inner voice, one that mirrors the parent's judgment and continues the cycle long after childhood. The consequences extend far beyond childhood. Adults who grew up with constant comparison often struggle with self-worth, relationships, and personal fulfillment. They may overwork themselves, avoid risks, or feel unworthy of love unless they meet certain standards. They may constantly compare themselves to peers, partners, or colleagues, never satisfied with what they have achieved. They may fear vulnerability, believing that showing their authentic self will only lead to judgment. What began as a few casual comparisons in childhood can shape a lifetime of self-doubt and insecurity. Breaking the habit of comparison requires awareness and intentionality. Parents can shift their focus from how a child measures up to others to how they are growing individually. Celebrating effort, resilience, curiosity, and uniqueness communicates that the child's worth is inherent, not conditional. Encouraging children to set personal goals and recognize their own progress fosters confidence and self-reliance. Simple acknowledgement. I see how hard you worked, or I'm proud of you for trying, has a profound impact compared to remarks that rank or pit them against others. The message a child receives through comparison is simple yet devastating. You are not enough. And once this belief takes root, it becomes one of the hardest lessons to unlearn. By avoiding comparisons and nurturing individuality, parents can create an environment where children feel safe to grow, fail, explore, and celebrate themselves. They learn to value their own journey, trust their capabilities, and understand that their uniqueness is a strength, not a flaw. This shift transforms not only childhood, but the way a child carries themselves through life, relationships, and their own self-perception. Children watch more than they listen, and one of the most powerful lessons they absorb comes from how their parents handle mistakes and accountability. When parents demand respect but never model it, when they never admit they were wrong or apologize, children learn silently, but deeply. They internalize the idea that feelings must be hidden, errors must be ignored or defended, and humility is unnecessary. Over time, this lesson shapes the way they approach relationships, communication, and conflict. The absence of a simple apology communicates, more than words ever could. It tells a child that they are not worthy of acknowledgement, that their hurt or disappointment is secondary, and that mistakes are something to fear rather than learn from. An apology is more than just saying, "I'm sorry." It is a demonstration of empathy, humility, and respect. It teaches children that mistakes are part of being human, and that relationships thrive when people acknowledge their faults. Without this example, children grow up carrying the weight of unresolved emotions. They bottle feelings, avoid vulnerability, and often struggle to form authentic connections because they have never seen that it's safe to admit wrongdoing. They may mimic the same behavior as adults, repeating cycles of avoidance, defensiveness, or emotional suppression in their own relationships. The ripple effect of unmodeled accountability can last for generations, quietly shaping families, friendships, and intimate partnerships. Parents often underestimate the significance of this lesson, believing that they are protecting their authority or maintaining respect. Yet, respect is earned not through fear or rigid control, but through modeling integrity and responsibility. When a parent apologizes, they teach that humility is strength, not weakness. They show that it is possible to make amends without losing dignity, and that relationships are strengthened, not threatened, by acknowledging mistakes. The child learns that they are safe to do the same, to speak their truth, to make errors, and to seek forgiveness. In the absence of this, children may grow up feeling isolated in their struggles, ashamed of their imperfections, and perpetually seeking validation from external sources rather than trusting their own moral compass. Many children wait for years, sometimes into adulthood, for the apology that never comes. That simple, human acknowledgement could have healed wounds, strengthened bonds, and nurtured self-confidence. Without it, resentment, confusion, and self-doubt take root. Children learn that emotions are inconvenient, that communication is risky, and that mistakes define rather than refine them. The cycle continues quietly. Children emulate the behavior they witness, repeating patterns of emotional suppression, avoidance of accountability, and lack of empathy. What could have been a brief, powerful moment of connection instead becomes a lifelong lesson in emotional distance. The impact of modeling apology goes beyond family dynamics. It shapes the child's worldview. They carry the lesson into schools, friendships, workplaces, and romantic relationships. They may struggle to forgive others, to admit faults, or to maintain honest communication because they never experienced a healthy example. By contrast, children who witness sincere apologies develop empathy, emotional intelligence, and resilience. They understand the power of humility and the importance of repairing relationships, not just maintaining appearances. They learn that being human means making mistakes, but being accountable means growing, healing, and connecting more deeply with others. Ultimately, apologizing as a parent is not about admitting weakness. It is about teaching strength, integrity, and respect. Every time a parent chooses to say, "I'm sorry," they model the kind of love that is safe, honest, and nurturing. They show children that relationships are built not on perfection, but on accountability, compassion, and the courage to acknowledge when we fall short. This lesson, quietly absorbed, becomes a cornerstone of character, shaping a child into an adult capable of empathy, trust, and authentic connection. It is one of the simplest yet most profound ways parents can break cycles of hurt and raise emotionally healthy, resilient, and confident children.